Good afternoon. Okay, it's time for us to start our next session. The following session on teaching the classical liberal arts by celebrating the timeline, an architect's joy of discovering level of detail in classical Christian education history, will be presented by Mrs. Kjirsten Harpain, who is a homeschooling mom, architect, and architectural specifier. You're going to define that for us?
No.
Okay. At Darden Architects, please welcome Mrs. Harpain.
Howard Rourke laughed. He stood at the edge of a cliff. The lake lay far below him. A frozen explosion of granite burst into flight to the sky over motionless water. The water seemed immovable, the stone flowing. The stone had the stillness of one brief moment in battle when thrust meets thrust and the currents are held in a pause more dynamic than motion. The stone glowed, wet with sun rays. The lake below was only a thin steel ring that cut the rocks in half. The rocks went on into the depth unchanged. They began and ended in the sky, so that the world seemed suspended in space, an island floating on nothing, anchored to the feet of the man on the cliff. His body leaned against the sky. It was a body of long straight lines and angles, each curve broken into planes. He stood rigid, his hands hanging at his sides, palms out. He felt his shoulder blades drawn tight together, the curve of his neck and the weight of the blood in his hands. He felt the wind behind him, in the hollow of his spine. He looked at the granite, to be cut, he thought, and made into walls. He looked at a tree, to be split and made into rafters. He looked at the streak of rust on the stone and thought of the iron ore under the ground, to be melted and to emerge as girders against the sky. These rocks, he thought, are here for me, waiting for the drill, the dynamite, and my voice, waiting to be split, ripped, pounded, reborn, waiting for the shape my hands will give them. He stepped to the edge, raised his arms, and dived into the sky below. Okay, that wasn't that fun? That was fun. So thank you all for joining. We're going to dive right in. The Fountainhead by, all right, I'm going to say it slowly, and I'm going to say it wrong every time after that. Ayn Rand. I'll call her Ayn Rand because it's easier for me, but I know that purists would call her Ayn Rand. All right. The Fountainhead seeks to enflesh the ideal man in the body of an architect, the actual ideal man, the man who creates and builds the world, who lives with conviction and pursues ideas without compromise. At this moment, in the opening scene of the story, Howard Rourke, this is how the story begins. I was on the previous page. Howard Rourke had just been kicked out of architecture school. He is in his favorite natural space, a rock quarry. In a scene reminiscent of romantic art, he stands alone on a cliff surrounded by symbolic landscape in a moment of modernity. He dives into the unknown head first. The author is Ayn Rand, whose birth name is Alisa Zinovenia Rosenbaum, born in 1905 in St. Petersburg, who came to the USA in 1926. And the first published date is 1943. The title is The Fountainhead. This book was recommended to me when I first started at Darden Architects 20 years ago by my beloved mentor, Ed Darden, Ed Darden Jr. of Darden Architects. Me being a reformed English teacher, 1 year of teaching was enough for me. And this being architecture in words, of course I read it. But there were aspects that I didn't know how to reconcile. Like knew Ayn Rand was a thing. I knew that being Howard Rourke was the right answer in architecture culture. It's been fun to inquire every architect has an opinion about it. Mr. Darden himself, he was inspired by it. My other co-worker scoffed at it when I mentioned it at work together. A third co-worker laughed heartily. But for myself, I didn't know how to feel about this piece of literature. I felt a dissonance. I couldn't put my finger on it. I didn't want to be Howard Rourke, and I also didn't want to marry him. He was no Mr. Darcy, and I guess I just didn't get it. So I needed my own scaffold to understand this material. And move on with life. Then I had children, and I started the process of redeeming my education through homeschooling. So that's a familiar term probably for some of you homeschool moms. And it's true, every bit of it. Because of my need for structure in life, the fact that I'm a working homeschooling mom, I needed a really strong spine to anchor me to this as a not exactly routine-oriented person. So we started with classical conversations, and I am so grateful for it. Let me take a poll. Who, let's just start with classical conversation. Who has heard of this? Okay, we've got a lot of yeses. Let's go with who hasn't. Okay, how about, okay, we'll do, okay. Let me check my next slide. So, who has not heard of the timeline with the classical conversations? Okay, great, cool. Finally, I'm so glad. All right, here you go. I needed the timeline. Enter what we call the timeline. And I say this is for all you CCAs out there. The timeline that I use is via classical conversations. It's not a plugin. This particular timeline has 160 events chronologically in order from the beginning of time's creation to about the present. I think we've all added COVID-19. It takes about 13 minutes to recite. I memorized the timeline song. You kind of heard it as you came in. I'm calling it an embarrassingly not exactly top 40 song. When I had my husband's truck to myself and traveled to job site meetings that were more than an hour away on a weekly basis, during the construction of a project over the course of 13 months. And I just put that thing on repeat, and I tried to sing along. And I tried, and I kept at it. So 13 months into construction, the building was complete. And I could annoy all of my friends for 13 straight minutes. Guys, cut. So I want to emphasize this point here. This wasn't just a 13-month project and then I'm done with it. And it also wasn't that time when I was like, I gotta do this, I gotta commit this in memory. That was not the first year we started. That was probably year 4 or something. So the concept of a timeline is a multi-year, usually K6, is we're focusing on memory of this. Multi-age, all of the age ranges in that span, memory work, which builds depth. So here, I'd like to define what I think a timeline should be. And I'm using, a timeline. First of all, there needs to be very few revisions. It can't be, this is not a rough draft. It has to be pre-fixed, because we're going to try and memorize this thing. And like, if they change anything, everybody's like, blown up. It's not, this is one of those things which is not a living project. It should be memorizable. So it needs to be memorized. The concept, it must be memorized. And so in order for me to memorize things, a good song, I should revise it. A song. A song that doesn't swirl around the circle too frequently is really critical. The tuneness of it really helps. I did not listen to, like, there's a portion where, it's just spoken. That's not the one I picked to memorize. For me, the first encounter should be unforgettable, even emotional. Some of us have talked about this, and it's actually breathtaking to cover the course of human events over a period of 13 minutes and to travel all of the ground of all of world history. It's really a big deal. My kids were like, how many years was I like tearing up at the end of it? And I'm like, it's just so beautiful, God. They're the ancients, the pyramids, now us. One thing I really like and appreciate about that we should do is that this building of community. The timeline is like, it's ideally like a universal thing that builds a community. And I like the story of Carrie. You have like a contractor come to your kitchen. I'm from. Don't kick me out now, but I'm from California. Carrie's in Missouri, and contract. So she just moved to Missouri. She moved to a new town. The contractor shows up to work on her kitchen or whatever, and he's wearing a "Some Guy in Africa" t-shirt. This is very funny, and so it's like, especially for those of us who are homeschooling, what a isolating, society rejecting thing to do. This community that we can build through a timeline is really wonderful. And so this is the concept. This is how it really struck home for me. It's the box top to the puzzle of world history. How many of us do a puzzle without a box top? Like, I'm not that, I like puzzles and all, but some people really like puzzles and then people without, get those ones that are all black. I do want to know where I'm going with my pieces of my puzzle. So this timeline is the box top to world history. Okay, we talked about maybe mentioning what I do in architectural specifiers, so I specify architectural materials for design to build projects. We work for publicly bid work. So I provide, working with public contract codes, I'm required to provide 3 manufacturers for all of our materials. And so I'm going to give you a list of the ones that I know of. I know there are more out there, but I'm going to give that this list. Here's a list that I know of. I have personal connection with the Classical Conversations one. So I have personal connection with the Classical Conversations one. It's it is fairly ubiquitous. I also have a personal connection with we're not with Classical Conversations now. We're with our group uses a Claritas, and they have a timeline. I enjoy reading it. I don't have it memorized. It does not have a sum, and I'm not trying. So these are the 2 that I am most familiar with. There are some. Here's a chart of some ones that I've researched. Veritas has one. Memoria Press has one. And some others. We were talking about maybe Hillsdale might have something. There are some more out there. I want to head back to this. Kind of in this, maybe some students are like this. If there are any classroom instructors or any classroom in schools, I really want to communicate to the classroom folks that a timeline can really help with reaching different students who think differently in different modalities. I don't have science on them, so get your school psychs involved or whatever, but I am convinced that it would help students with ADD to be able to connect the dots. Also, it's a very physical thing that you can do. It's a memory thing. It doesn't require motor skills or tactile. I've never written the thing down. Like, why would I do that? So it's not a written project. It's fully oral. It's memorized or sung. Some people might not want to sing. There are motions that you can't. There are signs that people do. So there's a really broad range of alternate modalities that it can support in working with this practice. And you're doing really important work, even though you're not writing and working, dealing with a pen, or even if you're jumping while you're doing it, jumping on the trampoline. I think there's been a lot of swinging and trampoline work on the timeline. My friend was talking about her kid running around the garden, and let's got decision, She can't, I don't know how her writing is. So I did think this would be a fun topic of conversation. So this is an interactive slide. So I've used the classical conversations timeline. It's got this song. It's got these items. But I want to propose here that we Lutherans should create a timeline, like CCLE should do a timeline. And it needs to span the whole range. And I know we can do a song because that's how we did small catechism. Was using the song, beautiful songs. So I think we Lutherans should unite. We should create a singable timeline. And so at this point, let's take some discussion about what we think what should be on maybe a Lutheran timeline. Some of you might be able to compare with the classical conversations timeline, and some of you it's okay if it's just a thought. But what are things that should be on a Lutheran timeline? And the rules are, like foundation to present. So what are some things that would be high points? So let's max out at 200 items. But we don't have to come up with all of them. But like amongst there's some things on this classical conversation where I'm like, this is a very non-Lutheran perspective, right? These things that are important to them are not important as much to Lutherans.
Like include the Book of Concord and not the Council of Trent.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Either one.
Right. Yeah, something like that. Book of Concord was mentioned. Yeah.
I think we still need to include how biblical times fit within that early history.
Yeah.
So, creation, but then what was happening in Asia at the same time as what was happening in Jerusalem in the biblical times. Like,
Yes,
that
absolutely. Because it is like growing up, I thought it was like there was the Jesus costumes, and then those were like all the same, whether you were Moses or Jesus. It was the same costume, and those were Bible costumes. And then there were the Egyptian costumes, and that was like ne'er the twain do they meet.
Yeah,
This is all happening at
so
the same
long
time.
ago, it was like Bible happened, and then the rest of history.
Yeah.
But then you look at the timeline, and you're like, wait a second, this was happening at the same time.
So working in the major Old Testament biblical items. Shall we move on? Anyone else?
I just think we should have other LCMS dates in there.
Yeah.
How many was set in that? And I think that we should remove the first and second Great Awakening. That's always in the timeline.
Exactly. Yeah, I would like to see. I would definitely Love to have some thinkers think about those things. I think also just recognizing that it is, so there's an identity component, there's a community component, and also we need to be able to use this timeline as a tool to basically run information through. Like, it should give enough context that many things that you would be able to put something new that we come across, for example, in a fountainhead, place it on a timeline and be able to have enough context around that to be able to see what's going on in the context of this thing. And that's what we're going to practice doing here in a couple minutes, is I'm going to work through all that stuff. At this point, do we feel like we have a good handle on the concept of a timeline? Okay. All right, here we go. We are back to the fountain, so we're going to now apply this concept to this book, the fountain. I'm going to start with level 1, the timeline as a checklist. So I'm going to take Ayn Rand and her dates, and I'm going to just pull that section. Hope it doesn't make you seasick to jump back, but I'm going to pull this section. I'm going to pull, she was born in 1905, let's pull 1900, and let's pull up to, when the book was published, and let's just take a look at that. All right, close your eyes if you're seasick. Okay. Okay, we can sing along if you're inclined. The Progressive Era, Australia becomes a Commonwealth, Mexican Revolution, World War I and President Wilson, Lenin and the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, U.S. evangelist Billy Graham, modern period of the arts, the Great Depression and the New Deal, World War II and President Franklin D. Roosevelt, Stalin of the USSR and the Katyn massacre. All right, so let's think about this. Let's use it as a checklist. The Progressive Era, 1900. Things are progressing a lot. It's in the U.S. It's not affecting Ayn Rand. She's in Russia at the time, dealing with other business happening in 1900. Don't care about Australia. Don't care about Mexican Revolution. World War I and President Wilson. I know that affects Russia. I don't know a lot about it, but I know, okay, World War I happens when she's something like 9 or 10 years old. That's global, okay. Lenin and the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia. By the way, her last name was Rosenbaum. So she's in Russia. She's got Lenin rolling through. She's got the Bolshevik Revolution. Her last name is Rosenbaum. She's in Russia. Okay. She goes to the U.S. in 26. We'll flag that. U.S. evangelist Billy Graham, not sure how it's going to fit in. Modern period of the arts, we're talking about architecture. We might expect to see something about modern architecture in this book. Are we going to see something about that? Great Depression and the New Deal. She came to the U.S. in 1926. That says 1929. It's kind of like buying a house in 2007. Might explain why I'm still working. Okay, so that cataclysmically changes the world. Okay, World War II and President Franklin D. Roosevelt. And this book is published 1943. I cannot reading the book. I don't know how. I don't see that yet. I don't know. Stalin of the USSR and the Katyn massacre. And so that's kind of the end of that thing. She's not in Russia anymore, so she's not there for Stalin. Okay, so we did that. What I'm going to call level of detail 1. I'm going to explain those level of details a little bit more. But basically, we're just using timeline as a checklist. Basically, which cards we're going to keep down, which cards we're going to throw out. And you want to do it fast because it's memory work, okay? So now we're going to take that level down one more layer, right? So we're going to continue using our memory work, and we're going to our history sentences. So we're getting a little more specific. We're not going to do the whole world timeline of history sentences. I'm just going to pull some sentences that I know that might match with these cards or might fit in with this card range. So you see I've got some classical conversation memory work, and I've got some Claritas memory work. That's just because of my experience that we've done both those things. Sing along, anybody? Tell me about the tycoons. During the late 1800s, tycoons like Vanderbilt, Rockefeller, Carnegie, and Swift fueled the nation's industrial age by developing American resources. Swift was Chicago. Tell me about the Romanovs. Oh, this is a Claritas one. I really enjoy the Claritas memory work and their history sentences. I really enjoy it. The songs are not as good. I do not remember this song. Tell me about the Romanovs and the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia. The gross disparity of wealth between Russia's royal family and peasants led to the Bolshevik Revolution. In 1917, Lenin's uprising replaced the monarchy with communism. So she would have been 12. Yes?
Can you just clarify something for me?
Yeah.
Are you saying that the sentence during the late 1800s tycoons, like you just saying that that's part of the timeline? What
No.
is this question? Tell me about the tycoons.
So I've now switched levels. So I'm using this term level of detail. Level 1, we did the timeline, or using it as a checklist. Now, for those who have a background in memory work, where like they've memorized a sentence every week. So now we're going to change gears into second gear, and this is how the memory work is structured. With this like a statement, it's like almost is it catechism?
So you're saying there is a timeline that they sing and they memorize.
Yes.
And this is something else.
Yes.
They additionally now learn, they memorize a sentence
Yes.
for each event on the timeline. Is that what you mean?
No, because you can't cover it to that. You're going into more detail, so you're not going to be able to hit every single one.
Okay.
So let's see. So this would be a year's work. You would memorize 24.
Okay.
Covering a particular
Section of history.
section of history. Exactly. And so there's fewer of these, and there's a little more information.
But there are also some.
Also some. I mean, they don't have to be some. I'm not, I wouldn't be able to. I mean, if I was thinking about
It's kind of like zooming in, right?
Yeah, we're zooming in.
Yeah.
One more step. One more in for this next layer of history sentences is tell me about immigrants coming to America. We know that she was part of this window. From 1820 to 1930, more than 37 million immigrants came to America seeking freedom and the opportunity to increase their personal wealth. Okay, so that is what I'm calling level of detail 2. I'm going to explain more about this level of detail a bit. Okay, and then we've got LOD 3 and 4. Later on, I'm going to do a one-to-one with plans and all. Maybe that'll make more sense. LOD, like level of detail 3. So now we're going to get into third gear. We're going to take it a little bit deeper. And so we're done with memorizations. This is not content anybody memorized anymore. This is like elementary level context. So like, I'm using this for things like story of the world. This is another, elementary type of history, something like this. So with reading at my elementary story of the world, I know that the author lived through communism, through Lenin especially, and the Bolshevik Revolution, and a little bit of that misery. And I also know she didn't stick around for phase 2, Stalin. So how would I think that she thinks about it? I think she didn't like communism. She wasn't waiting for this thing to come out of its nosedive. So that's going to help to influence. So that I'm going to think, okay, maybe she cannot not have an opinion about communism. I think she could not have escaped the story of communism in her world. And we know that she was there for phase 1, and she was gone by phase 2. And so that's an example. Also, the backs of these timeline cards have a a page. So this little LOD3 stuff is like a page. I'm trying to think about how much time I have left. And it's not into a lot of depth, but it's got this band. So this is kind of a cross section. There's some general familiarity with things. By the time you're in 6th grade, but you're still building that growing up. LOD4 is it's going to take us right into the next level of detail, right? So instead of having an elementary grade book, it's going to be a higher grade, like a high school grade, or you maybe not reading the whole thing, maybe you're just looking at chunks, at sections. I would say at this point, I'm not, I'm not super technical. And this is an opportunity where I like to make connections. So reading about the book, one thing that was really fun for me is here we are in like land of architecture. These Chicagoans, man, they love their architecture. They almost love it as much or more than New Yorkers, which, New Yorkers have architecture. So I was like, I love to connect this to Chicago architecture. How can I do that? So just recognizing what was happening in Chicago relative to architecture, that there could be such a thing. We've got Swift, the meatpacking tycoon, doing all the meat work, lots of money happening. So this is bringing money into the city. We have the 1871 Chicago fire, which burns the place practically to the ground. Ashes, as we know, are very fertile. And 20 years later, they hosted the Chicago World's Fair here, which was like one of the last fabulous world fairs. So I think that's really interesting. We have, so right around this time, Adler and Sullivan are getting work relative to the World's Fair and the work that's coming after that. Adler and Sullivan are employing Frank Lloyd Wright. He was born a little bit before then, but they're giving him work. And in 1890, he built his house here. And so that takes us to Frank Lloyd Wright. And it is like commonly held, though no one is going to stake their life on it, that Frank Lloyd Wright was the model for Amory, for this Howard Rourke character, this man who was creating something entirely new, who was pushing the boundaries of engineering, cantilevering these roofs beyond anything that we'd ever seen, creating a new American architecture. So this is someone that she's going to be inspired for with Howard Rourke. Let's see, anything else? I think this is really something. And so I'm researching these. I'm not preparing a paper or anything. I'm just curious minded at this point. I read the introduction to the book, and she's got some disagreements with Nietzsche. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm not classically educated. I'm still reclaiming my education. I'm up to the So I know she disagrees with Nietzsche, who I've never read. But he's got this Ubermensch concept, right? It's like this man, this human man, can do these things. We were in this world, and man can be anything. And then I just think it's so interesting that Ubermensch concept didn't really take off in the U.S. Why not? Because she disagrees with some of the roles that he has there, and I think that the European Ubermensch is that thing, but in the U.S. we have our tycoons. We already had Ubermensches. Nietzsche's writing about our people. And so, Swift is progress oriented, he's doing the thing, inventions every day. He's an Ubermensch starting out, born in poverty, and building this empire like Rockefeller and Vanderbilt. These things are happening here. And so I think that it's interesting from my perspective on this book that I, as an American, have a different perspective of a tycoon, of an Ubermensch, than she would coming from Europe with her Nietzschean philosophy of what makes an Übermensch. So anyway, those are just things I like thinking about. Okay, here's when I get into level of detail. So I'm going to define this. Don't Google level of detail. If you do Google level of detail, you'll find one of two things. You'll find in computer gaming modeling, when they're building out computer games, level of detail is used as a way to economize memory. So you're not going to detail out every candle in the space. Like if I had, say, a computer game and nobody's actually going to be interacting closely with this organ, I'm not going to model out all the pipes. I'm going to put what's going to be in the field of vision, have more detail, and what's further and further less detail. That's the computer graphics definition. Architectural will use level of development, which is like as you progress through a phase of a project, a schematic design will have this level of development. I want to really refer to this level of detail loosely, not too technically, but conceptually. And we're going to use it very closely. We're going to tie it, for this presentation purposes, to the concept of scale. So we're going to really keep it to scale and just the simplest way. Concept being scale. Okay, so here's an example. So I'm bringing you an example of a project that's currently in construction. So I'm going to call this LED 0, the cover sheet. There's not a whole lot of information here. What we need to have here is a vicinity plan. This basically shows this project is happening in Central Valley, California, Madera. Okay, and then it enumerates the table of contents. I just want you to know what the first sheet of a plan set looks like. Okay, very early on, we're going to see, this is sheet 001, this is what comes after the table of contents. This is the site plan. So, what's important about a site plan is it includes all the stuff on the site. So if the site includes something across the street over here, that site plan needs to include it. It covers the scope. So I would say that applies to the definition of a timeline. Like the timeline should start at the beginning, and it should take us as close to where we are as we think is reasonable. Should cover the scope. Should have a really good understanding of like the overall concept. All right, the scale on this plan is 1/64 inch equals 1 foot 0 inches. So about a foot is represented on this plan at like, a very tiny amount. We're seeing whole buildings. So the purpose is we're going to see the overall project scope. You can see that we're seeing major features and relationships. There's about 10 buildings. There's some athletic fields. There's parking here, parking here, parking here. That way, if we know we're going to the athletic field, we'll park over here. If we're dropping someone off at football practice, if we're picking up someone from band practice, this would be a more convenient spot. So we can get oriented to that. It needs to be memorized. This idea is mapped to the timeline. So when I think of the site plan, I think of the timeline. The timeline is the site plan. I see the whole extents. I see no details. I do not know how to get to a bathroom in any of these buildings, but I know where they are. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. So when we came to this campus, we got a campus map because we needed to know where to park and how to walk to our next building. Little quick story. Went to the store. I took the wrong route. I did the long route. Still got there because I, generally know there's a building. I'll just walk around it. I'll get to the door. It'll happen eventually. And then when I took the other route, the more efficient route on the way back, it stank like garbage. So I liked the first route better, even though it was longer. I like to be able to, so that reminds me, I like to be able to take whatever route I want between the buildings. I want to have the confidence to be able to turn left or right, whichever preference I want to take. And if you have the timeline memorized, then you can say, hey, let's follow Rome and what's happening with the fall in Constantinople, and let's trace through the Byzantine Empire. Or, let's trace it all the way back. Let's trace them forward. Let's pick another topic, and we'll trace that around. I think that's really fun, and you have to be able to navigate on your own. And the site plan is to help you navigate on your own. Maybe it's hot. Maybe you want the shady side of the street. Maybe one side has awnings and it's raining. You need to be able to make those decisions because you've got that level of familiarity. Oh, this is it closer up. I think we've covered that content. Okay, next then we submit floor plans for each building. So here is what I'm calling level of detail 2, the floor plan. The scale here is 3/32 inch equals 1 foot 0 inches. Here is the floor plan. Let's see, 3/32. Well, that's like a lot bigger than 1/64 inch equals 1 foot 0 inch. So it connects. And then this is the other thing. It's going to connect upwards and downwards. These things are not floating around in space. There is a connection, a key. This is the floor plan. The site plan had building letters. This is building. It showed building A on the site plan. This is building A, administration building. So it connects up, and then also it's going to connect down to the more detailed areas by way of these call-outs. So here's this administration building. Here's the entry. Let's add a little more space on that. So here's an entry area, and it's got a dotted line around it and a call out right here. It's going to reference a section, and we're going to look at that. A detailer, we can look at that. Here are some bathrooms, a dotted line around here with a detailed call out here, and we're going to look at that detail. We're going to look closer at these things. It's always connected. Each level as it goes. These items are little strings that work their way up and down in level of detail. For example, so using this, you can see where to enter the building, where to access the bathrooms. Oh, pro tip, always use the bathroom. It's a lot of fun. It gives you something to do, and you get to explore other parts of the building that aren't necessarily readily available, like, especially like restaurants, and you get to go in the back by the kitchens, poke your head in, see the bath. Like, it's fun, even if you don't have to go. So that's always something that I like to do is, check out the bathroom. It's, you're generally authorized to use it. All right, so, okay, so then now we're going to take another step down. Plan checker cannot tell based on that floor plan if this is an ADA accessible bathroom. We need to have 18 inches here. We need to have 12-inch clearances here. So we need to have clear floor space. We've got a lot of notes because we've got to call out each one of these details. What do I need to know? I'm telling you that this is like reading children's level books. Okay, so you can see we've got a lot of information in this thing. It needs to be a little bit larger scale. The scale now is at, I think we're at 1/4 inch. Yeah, so we went from 3/32. Our office uses 30 seconds. Not perfect. We'll call that an 8. And then this goes to 1/4 inch. This is twice as big. Well, it works out to be 4 times as big relative to scale, and you've doubled it. And so now we can show all of the necessary clearances for the code required dimensions in the bathrooms, each of the bathrooms. And so that way the plan checker can check off that each one of these is correct. And here's, similarly, this is also the same level. We're still like reading children's history books. We're getting more orientation, a little more detail. We're finding out what Lenin rolls in and the secret trip from, Poland, and that's all very interesting. And the Tsar, and then you're learning some of this contextual stuff. This is a enlarged scale plan. There's some particular casework here in the administration area. And each of these, remember that bubble with the call out on the floor plan connects to this location. This is like a little address. I don't know, it's like M1 on this detail call out. I want to show you this. This doesn't look very interesting, I know. It's just casework in the administrative area. But we're going to reference this detail right here. We're going to draw a little casework section, and I'm going to show you that in a minute. So it's connecting the dots between this upper level to this lower level, or to this less detailed area to this more detailed area. LOD4, wall assemblies. Right, we don't even know how these things, like the walls are constructed. Is there insulation? Are they, what kind of finishes? We don't know. Here we go. Now we're kind of into the details. We're not seeing a building shape anymore. These are all references out now. This is like, this information is 1.5 inches to 1 foot. So it's getting bigger now. So it connects the dots. I could go back. This mark right here shows a wall type. Each one of these shows a wall type. Each of these walls is assigned a type. And then you go to your wall assemblies to see what that wall type is. And they're listed right here. So if it said type F on the floor plan, and this is type F, this is going to be how you build that wall. You're going to see the cladding, the exterior structure on that. Okay, here is the full sheet. I think this is interesting in that we're breaking from a floor plan now. We're not going to do wall assemblies. There's just a lot of walls. They're all going to be the same handful of types. Here they are. Then we're going to jump in to level of detail 5. Casework details 3 inches to 1 foot 0 inch. Like, this is a really important detail here. So I want to show, let's see, channel reveal. Yeah, this detail right here is a channel reveal, and it's 3 inches. In real life, it equals 1 foot. So this is almost real life size. Almost just lay the wood out there and put it together, Because we've got right here a LED lighting component that we're showing how all of the pieces are going to fit with that. It's very detailed. We need to know that. And more of those things. Here is so that's taking us through 5. And like I said, really things need to be in 5. If it's 6, shrink it down to 5. I could go with 4 or 3, honestly. But 5 is a great number. We got 5 fingers. You get something like extreme sight to include everything, extreme detail to answer all of your concerns, and then you've got some space in the middle to work with that. So here's our correlation, our little map for that. So for architecture, I'm calling level of detail 1. 1 is zooming way out. It's your site plan, and it's the timelines on. And then for level of detail 2, we're zooming in a bit more with our floor plan and our history sentences. And then LOD3, we're zooming in closer. We've got these enlarged floor plans. We can see more context, context really to kind of navigate in there. That's the whole point of a ADA floor plan, is to show how a wheelchair is going to navigate in this space. So at this plan, we're really navigating spaces with our, narrate our card summaries and our children's, sorry, I could write that. Our children's story of the world stuff. Then we get further into wall assemblies. We're going a little bit deeper. I'm saying sort of the world in elementary history. I'm a little loose on 3 and 4. I'm sorry to pin that down tighter. But the point is, at 5, we're at the deepest level, which is our detail sheets. We got 3 inches on that, 1.5 inches sure. This is when you're doing a deep dive, you're doing some history. you're making connections. Historical fiction, for example, especially, right? I mean, and literature. And oh, I wanted to mention this level of detail 5. Let's bring it back to Ayn Rand, okay? So, and let's pull out an LOD 5 thing. So I was at the Frank Lloyd Wright tour. So I'm doing the Frank Lloyd Wright tour, and he's got two sculptures and his front portico for his studio edition that are sitting on top of the porch. These two sculptures symmetrically flanking the entry to the studio, and they're in the shape of a man crouched down, and they're in the color red, like clay. And it's like this man is crouching down and coming out of the earth. So that's like an example of this level of 5 detail that is so interesting, that connects Frank Lloyd Wright to the fountainhead conceptually. That's what she's writing about, is like this man coming out of the earth, himself, throwing off the, building his own future. Whether or not we disagree about that, by the way, is a different topic. Okay, so I want to mention here, I felt like I was given all level 5 and no site plan. So, level 5 could be the stickiest in your memory because it's so memorable, it's so lifelike, it's so one-to-one. But I was never able to put all of these level 5 details together to construct a higher level of understanding, much less to build a timeline. So simply put, I could not construct the site plan from the details. Even if I had a million details, I could not construct the site plan. And I thought it was my fault. I thought that meant that, you can build buildings with this, but how they look like is, we can't do that. So I thought it was a personal failing of mine that I couldn't read a book of level 5. I couldn't take these trips to do this immersive activity and understand how things related to each other. So there's a little story. In 5th grade, my teacher took us to Fort Point. We spent the night in San Francisco. Super fun. I played trumpet taps. Tell you how to make a heart attack. This is salt. This is a tile, from the San Juan Bautista mission of Fox reined in. What were the Spanish doing on the West Coast? And when was this anyway? I don't know. I tried to read War and Peace on my own after I had my degree in English. It was just a collage that looked like this. Socrates in the phone booth. So I'm saying the site plan changes everything. Students don't feel history because they lack effort, they lack the site plan. I think that a timeline song is the most powerful tool in our classical history education arsenal. The scale is the key to clarity. Understanding where we're at, what scale are we living at when we're talking about things? A contractor builds from survey to detail. He's not, out there working on that LED detail, the casework, in the dirt. He's got to pour slab first, and he's got to enclose it. So I like that approach. Let's see. So here's some practical tools. I don't know. I have a bit of. I could finish up. You guys want to hear the last paragraph in the story? You want to do some story reading, or shall we go to questions?
Practical tools.
Thank you. Well, I think the most practical tools: know which scale you're at. Know what your scale expectations are. Even though our unit studies in the chapter in the level of detail 5, where we're embalming chicken, is super great and memorable, it doesn't connect us to what's happening in biblical times during that time or other kinds of things. I've got a few more slides to discuss. Is there a uniform or a history sentence required? I think the biggest one is, do the students know what level they're working in? I think there's an expectation as an educator, to really be
clear about what level of detail we're working with, and so that they can respond appropriately. I think there's a lot of students who would appreciate being able to zoom out a bit, step back to get some context in place. Okay, let's discuss. Maybe let's do discussions. Anybody want to discuss?
Are you volunteering to make the CCLE?
You know, we should know something, and that is I'm a convert. So, I don't know, like all the Lutheran history. Yeah.
Comment also, so I taught history in 6th grade,
Oh,
and
yeah.
that's the first time I taught history last
Okay.
year.
Wow.
Before
Congratulations,
Right.
good job.
a math, yeah, thank you.
Teaching is an amazing field.
Yes, it is. So I've been a math teacher before that.
Yeah.
On level of detail, what I found
Oh, sure.
was that doing a timeline helps them understand what even is this level of detail or order of magnitude, or how close these events are to each other.
Yeah, yeah.
For
Yeah.
the first quarter,
Order of magnitude.
we started with the fall of Rome and went through about the Great Schism, and it was about 100 years a week. And then we took a break from that, and quarter 2 was Reformation, which is much more tight.
Yeah.
And
Right,
to
and it
see-
gets tighter and tighter, right?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, keep going.
Right. No, but to start at the beginning of the year with asking them to actually have them make a countdown card where they put the 7 inches for creation to 2025, and then after Christmas 26, and then to put the cross in the event just to calculate the measurements.
Yeah.
Was a good practical exercise for them,
Yeah.
which they struggled with at the beginning and then mastered by practice. And it helped them in their math class, which is what I liked. But it also did help, I think, with the contextualizing level of detail of the history. They did not have much of a concept before.
Right. And we, you know, at least we regularly reinforce and we just keep returning to it. Yeah.
I'm curious about you or anybody else who does a timeline, how you display it for your students. Like I've seen a lot of wall timelines, but like you were saying, I think it's so detailed. Like,
Right.
okay, I gotta take up now like so much space.
In the
And then
classroom, I have an Adam synchronological chart. That's a great 1880-something infographic that is all of the different empires and their rulers and some information about them and other figures, historical figures. But it's from left to right, spanning all of those centuries, but vertically it shows different places.
What was that one?
It's,
Adam's synchronological.
Is it you? And that sounds super
Yeah.
cool.
There's also a book.
It's like a big
Yes.
and
Yes.
it's all up in there.
It's Adams.
Adam's synchronological
I
chart,
think
1889.
Also, in our role, like with the homeschooling one, with the rental facilities, we had like a whiteboard about yay big, and we would write 7 things on it and sing those a week. 7 new things a week. And then we would just sing each week that stuff, and then at the end we'd sing again. So we were, as a homeschooling mom, was packing in and packing out. Oh my goodness, you come to California, the whole thing. We're outside. We put up a 10 by 10. And so we homeschooled my friend's backyard. Do the thing. So yeah, it was very material light and very recitation heavy. Any other questions? How do we do? How do you guys do? Yes.
So, for schools that started recently, we have kids coming.
Congratulations! Thank you. Recent school. Thank you.
We've got kids coming from different history curriculums.
Yeah.
Do you start them all off on a timeline before going into higher levels of detail?
So just a little bit every day. So timeline just a little bit every day and just build on it.
Going inside? Okay,
Yeah.
Great,
It's its own 5-minute activity or whatever.
great, thanks.
And then they do like, those little games, reviews to remember on like, they play a game where they flip them all over and one has the bottom line. Always love that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a little,
Well,
after you